Amin Rabbal Alamin. Thank you, Brother Harith Rahman, for the recitation of the dua. So, inshallah, as we are all aware, today's talk or today's webinar will be about harmful algal blooms and their impacts to the socioeconomics. So, before we start, if anyone were to have any questions regarding the topic, you can ask them live to our speaker, or you can type your question in the chat box and I will bring it up later. So before we start our talk, allow me to introduce a little bit about our speaker of the day. Our speaker is Dr. Normawaty binti Mohammad Nur, who is a lecturer in IIUM Kuantan campus. Uh, she got her PhD in marine biology in Copenhagen University, and her expertise are in harmful algal blooms, toxins, phytochemicals, and algae and microalgae. So, without further ado, I would like to invite our speaker, Dr. Normawaty binti Mohammad Nur, to deliver her talk for the day. Doctor, now the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Brother Chairman. Okay, Assalamualaikum. So nice to see you again. So before I start, do we have students or somebody else other from other classes? Do you have that in this today's meeting, today's presentation? Ada ke? Ke only you all? Ada daripada kelas lain ke?
Yes, we have other participants from other classes.
Okay. Okay, now I can share my screen first. Let me try to share. Hopefully everything will run smoothly today. InsyaAllah. Okay. Okay, can you all see my slides? Can anybody respond?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay. Okay, if for example the slide did not move, please inform me as soon as possible. If not, I will be talking alone. Okay. Okay. So for today's topic, we're going to talk about socio-economic impacts of harmful algal bloom. Okay. Okay. Because I believe that there are students that not from IUM and maybe although from the first year or second year. So before we go to the socio-economic impact, so let me introduce you first about harmful algal bloom. Okay, harmful algal bloom, okay, is actually something that is an algae, is a microalgae that grow in high in number. Okay, why does they grow? They grow because of the environment condition is suitable for them, especially nutrients. So they grow in so high in number that they can cause problem. Okay, so here, this is from NOAA. Actually, I take it from NOAA. You can see that harmful algal bloom or HABs occur when colonies of microscopic algae grow out of control. And these bloom are a growing problem in every US coastal and Great Lake states, and also actually not only in US but all over the world. And we cannot prevent actually this bloom. It's a natural phenomena. Yeah. So sometimes the microscopic algae in waterways around the nation grow out of control. Some of these algae can contaminate water and shellfish, kill animals and make human sick. That's actually make these microalgae unique and very important. So we can classify harmful algal bloom into two different types. The first one is toxic, meaning that they can produce a toxin and they can contaminate the shellfish. So when we eat the shellfish, so we will get a problem. Another group is non-toxic, which is they did not produce toxic, but when they grow in high salinity, they can disturb the marine environment. And here actually what they can cause, you can see that it can cause eutrophication, it can cause the fish gill. So these two can cause fish gill. They also can block the light, and also they also can cause larva fish, shellfish and copepod stop breeding actually. So this can, for example, the block light by the HAB actually can cause effect on seagrass bed, because we know that the seagrass need light for in order for them to do photosynthesis and keep on living. So this is a non-toxic. Non-toxic meaning that they did not produce toxic, but high cell number will cover the surface, and the sea sometimes turn into green or brown or red depending on the species. Yeah. So this actually showing that the harmful algal bloom. In the middle here, you can see the human seafood consumer, and we can divide into this problem HAB, the toxic HAB. They can go through the pelagic, meaning they're eaten by all the fishes and transfer finally to other level, okay, and finally go to the human. And also the other on the right side is actually on the benthic, when the toxic HAB. Okay, and then they will contaminate the suspension feeding bivalve, and then when other organisms eat this, for example otter, they will pass through them. Okay, and finally, uh, these all will link to human. Okay, now I'm talking just now saying that the HAB actually is a fish killer. Okay, they can cause a lot of problem for the non-toxic species. So one of the species actually Cocodonium polycrocodis, but actually these species have new name now. They call this species as Mangaliphidinium polycrocodis, and other species, for example, Chaetonella, Heterosigma, Paramecium, all these type of species of microalgae, they can cause fish to die. So how actually? So when you can see the picture here, the diagram. Okay, the water flow together with harmful algae. So go into the fish, go through the gills. Okay, that is the gills. Okay, what happened actually when the algae go? This algae get intact, connect, reach the gill, it will rupture. Okay, the cell will rupture, and the rupture of cell will produce ROS and also FFA. Okay, ROS stand for reactive oxygen species, and then this actually have bring problem to the fish here. Okay, the gill here. Okay, and finally it will make the gill damage. And finally, when the gill damage, so the fish will die. And beside that, when the fish have this problem, the fish also lost balance. So that's why the fish, if you read some article talking about HAB, they found that the fish like they're swimming like not really like a normal swimming way, something like that. That's because they're like the balance actually lost. Yeah. Okay, now I'm going to go into the socio-economic impact. Actually, here we uh is a video actually, but unfortunately I cannot make it work. Okay, let me try again. Okay, I try if I use like this, whether it can work or not. Sekejap ya. Sorry ya. Okay, now it can work.
Doctor, we cannot hear the audio actually.
Okay, sorry. You cannot hear the audio. I have made actually the maximum. Still
No,
you can hear?
it's when we present, we cannot see, we cannot hear any audio.
Okay, never mind. In that case, then actually the audio actually I want to introduce to you about the socio-economic impact. So in the video, it will show you actually the video is about toxic algae in US, and the toxic algae happened in one of the lake because as I believe that you know that HAB actually can happen in marine and also in the freshwater environment. So this actually the video talk about the HAB happen in the lake, and it caused a lot of problem, and it caused a lot of socio-economic impact whereby stop the tourism industry and so on. Okay, that's actually I want to show in the very beginning the socio-economic impact of the HAB. Okay, now can you see the next slide? The title main economic impact of HAB.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, now we're going on the economic impact. Okay, so some people they like to put it as a straight economic impact. Okay, economic impact is defined to mean either lost gross revenue in the relevant product or factor markets, expenditure on environmental monitoring and management, or other costs that would not have been incurred in the absence of HAB. So that's economic, right? So we talk about socio-economic is relate to or concern with the interaction of social economic factors. So social between the community with people and economy. So that's a social economy. So if we talk about economic impact of HAB, so we can divide it into four. The first one is human health impact. The second one is tourism, recreation, and impact. The third one, commercial fisheries impact. And number four is monitoring and management impact. Okay, now, so the first one, we go into the human health impact. Okay, the human health impact. Okay, human exposed should be in many ways, whether through recreational water, direct or indirect. Okay, for example, there is a bloom in the sea and then people go and swim, so they will have a direct impact. Okay, sometimes some of the bloom like shabby, they produce a toxin in types of aerosol, meaning that is in the air. So people can, when people inhale, so it will have the problem. Okay, and another way actually is through drinking. So some of the HAB, they can produce toxin in the water, and the water, especially in the dam, where the water will go through our tap, okay, and then we take it and we drink it. So it will cause drinking problem when we drink that water. And then another way is actually consuming food, for example, through fish and contaminated seafood. So this slide shows, symptom of exposure, whether ear, eye, nose, skin, and throat, irritation, headache. When we have the HAB, maybe have paralyzed respiratory. This is especially for the toxic one because they produce toxin. So when we eat the shellfish, for example, that have the toxin, so we people might have the problem with paralyzed respiratory, and then maybe have abdominal pain, diarrhea, liver. So depending on the level of the toxin. If the level of the toxin is very low, so maybe the person only have diarrhea, but it's very high the toxin level, it can cause a lot more problem and finally death. And drooling, diarrhea, okay, low energy, not eating, stumbling for animals also can cause problem, yeah, not only for human. Okay, human health impact. Later we're going to see table 2. Okay, it can effect occur in human at varying degree and it need medical treatment. So and so far we don't have any antidote for HAB related toxin exposure. And the symptom management and supportive care are the only available treatment. Okay, so meaning that when people have toxin problem with HAB, so we'll bring to the hospital. What they can do, only they can give a supporting care if they have problem in breathing, maybe they can give something to help them to breathe and so on. But in some country, they believe that, if you have this type of problem, toxin problem, including HIV, so the local people sometimes they suggest that to drink coconut water, okay, to drink coconut water to get rid some of the toxin, yeah. And when we have this problem, of course, we have going to have the cost of medical treatment, illnesses, investigation, and emergency transportation. So this is about human health impact. Yeah. Okay. That I'm saying just now. Okay. This is table 2. This is a table showing toxin produced by marine dinoflagellate or diatom, their symptoms, route of exposure, and affected area. You can see that for a toxic HIV, so we have different kind of syndrome which we call as ASP, amnesic shellfish poisoning, Ciguatera fish poisoning, diuretic shellfish poisoning, okay? And for example, for ASP, the toxin we call that cause the problem we call as domic acid. For Ciguatera, we call as ciguatoxin and so on. And this is the causative organism that have been identified to cause the problem, and the symptom, the root. Okay, how can people get the problem? Okay, for example, for the first one, ASP, people will get the problem through consumption of shellfish, and this actually worldwide problem. Okay. And the second one, for example, so how does the CAP got problem? People got problem when they consume coral reef fish, okay, because the species that cause the CFP live at the coral area because they live together attached with the seaweed. Okay, seaweed normally can be found in the coral reef area. Yeah. And then we go on to the next slides. Okay, this is the estimate cost of public health due to HIV in US, for example. So you can see this is a water type, for example, coastal area. Okay, all normally happen. HIV is in coastal area. Okay, source of algae, symptoms. Okay, source of algae, for example, Carina brevis. Carina brevis is one of the very toxic species. Yeah, symptom, for example, a respiratory, digestive illness. Okay, the cost estimated, it can cost, you can see that millions and millions, dollar. And the cost type actually treatment. So when people have the problem HIV brought to the hospital, so they have a lot of treatment. When they have a treatment, we're going to have costs, emergency treatment. You have to pay the physician, you have to pay the medicine and so on. Okay, so all this actually lead to the socio-economic problem. Yeah. Okay, now we move on to another problem actually, the tourism or recreation impact. Okay, the first one just now is human health. Now we go on to the second one, tourism or recreation impact. So for this impact actually, is influenced by change of water body during the bloom, meaning that when HIV happen first, especially in the sea, so it will move around from one place to another, following the current, following the wind. Yeah, so meaning that if there is a HIV, so it can move around, right? So discoloration of water, dead fish on beaches, and smell from algal bloom. So when we have the algal bloom, okay, it can have cause the water, the sea water not become blue anymore. It can have different color. It can have red. It can have brown, depending on the species. It can cause fish death. When it happen, so when the fish dead and when the bloom of the HIV decay, it can produce a smell. This bad smell is cause a lot of people doesn't want to go to the sea to have swimming and so on. And economy losses, particularly related to recreation fishes, reduction of visitors, hotel, restaurant, and beaches and lakes. So people doesn't want to go to the beach anymore. Okay, they try to avoid. So this will cause economic impact. Yeah. And then some of the people who live nearby, so they need to move to another area, especially this for the HIV, that the toxin can be spread through aerosol, through the air. So they need to move to another place. And another one is that when people go to the beach, normally people would like to have a very relaxed mind, to have picnic and so on. But then we went, the bloom happened on the beach, or not on the beach, on the coastal area. So it will reduce the recreational experience of visitors to these beaches, to this area. Okay, so the visitor, okay, when we go to the beach and then sometimes we saw this bloom, so like we are very frustrated. So it reduced the what they call as recreational experience. So here, the picture here, you can see that when have problem, for example, in the beaches, they have noticed, for example, an algal bloom has made this area potentially unsafe for water contact, avoid direct contact with visible surface scum, so because when have bloom, people don't want to go to the swim. First, because we're afraid. Just imagine that the coastal water is different color, so nobody want to go in. And if people dare to go in, and if they have the direct contact, so they might have the itchy, the skin itchy, gatal-gatal and so on. Yeah. And another one here, up here, when in doubt, stay out. So stay away from the water when you suspect a harmful algal bloom is present. Don't play with scum or mat on the shore, meaning that when we have the bloom on the sea, it will be very dense, that it will form a scum, okay, or a mat. And sometimes this scum will wash away into the beach. So they said don't play. The second one is don't let animals drink water or eat algae or swim. The animal also are prohibited to go if we have the harmful algae. HAB. Don't swim, don't fish or wade, and don't boat or kayak. So all these are prohibited during the harmful algal bloom. So meaning that if we have the HAB, we cannot go picnic, we cannot have play kites, we cannot build the sandcastles, on the beach. So it have a lot of problem, yeah. So like in Malaysia, I don't think we have this so much about HAB problem yet, not yet. But in other country, they have a lot of problem, okay, on HAB. So now, for the impact, this is one of the example, actually, impact of Carinea brevis bloom to tourism in activity in Gulf of Mexico. So this is just one of the example. For example, when they have a bloom of this species, and this bloom actually been spread to the people through aerosol and cause human health. Okay, how? Direct exposure include accidental ingestion of contaminated water exposed to skin, eyes, and ears during swimming, and the inhalation of aerosol toxin while at the beach. So this is the problem of the health. So it can cause human health impact. So when this happen, when the bloom, when HAB happen during this time, so it will reduce the business located close to the beach, for example, the restaurant, the lodging, the resort, everything will reduce. Not many people will come. And also, tourists will change the route. So instead of going to the beach A, so they will change to go to another beach, for example. So this actually will have the impact on the tourism recreation impact. And also, during this time, when not so many people will go and swim in that area, so the lifeguard will go on vacation. Okay, so these all need the monitoring and management impact. So when we talk about HAB bloom, when we talk about socio-economic bloom, actually there are many impact. It's not only one impact, for example, human health impact, but actually there are many impact that are interrelated with each other. For example, for this case, we have human health impact, we have tourism impact, and we have monitoring and management impact. So now we go on to the third one, commercial fisheries impact. Okay, during the HAB bloom, toxin must be absorbed by fish or shellfish. Maybe, not must, may be absorbed. Okay. And then the algae population may cause oxygen depletion in water bodies that lead to fish mortality. So hence, the fish or shellfish are prevented to be sold in market. So when the fish die in the aquaculture, when nobody want to buy, okay, the fish, and the aquaculturists also cannot sell their fish, okay. and it lead to the increasing fish price and the decline in customer demand. So when we have less fish in the market, so the price will be high. Okay, and another thing is that when HIV problem in certain area have have HIV problems, so normally the government will announce, announce to the public, okay, now we have the HIV problem, don't go to the beach and so on. So when this announcement take place, normally people, the community will afraid and they will not go and buy the fish, so this will decline the customer. So so we have a lot of economic here, the impact. Yeah, people doesn't want to buy fish. Although HIV, it actually does not affect all fish, only certain fish only. Yeah, but because of the low awareness, normally people will just take a general, right? And the mass mortality of marine product, in particular for farm culture, fish, abalone, so it cause a lot of problems. So you can see here the picture, a lot of fish die in one time. So just imagine if a person is aquaculture, if all their fish die, so the farmers will lose a lot of money, okay, in one time of bloom. Okay, so now let us try and see the table 4. Okay, this is the estimate economic impact of fisheries damage caused by HIV in China, Korea, and Japan. Okay, according to Sakamoto in 2020. So you can see in China, for example, okay, this is the species that caused the bloom. In the year 2012, it cost more than 2 billion. Okay, and if you change to USD, about 290 million. Okay, so you go to still in China in year 2000, so it cost 21.8 million. In Japan, okay, this species Chatonella, for example, so in 2010, it cost 53 million. Okay, and in Japan also another species, Cocodonium polyprochides, in 2000, it can cost 40 million. Okay, in Korea, the species, this Cocodinium or Megalophidium polyprochides, this species actually known as fish killer. So you can see that in 2013 it cost to 22.5 million. In 2007 it cost 10.5 million. 2003 it cost 19.5 million. So you can see millions and millions USD have been lost because of the HIV. So the last problem of the HIV is actually monitoring and management impact. So in order to protect public health, fisheries and economic losses caused by the bloom, okay, we must have how actually to monitor, how to manage. Okay, so we know, for example, this species occur at the same area, keep on occurring. So we must have what should we do? So normally what people do, we need to do monitoring. So when we do monitoring, we need money. So and also we need to have management, how actually to inform the public as early as possible. Okay, some people use a satellite, some people use a warning system. Some people need to go there and sample the water, take the water, bring back, and then try to identify under the microscope. Yeah, and then count the cells. So all these relate to money. Need to pay people to do their work. Okay. So and efficient monitoring include a regular quantitative and qualitative sampling of phytoplankton. And economic impact include cost of water sampling, remote sensing, cost of toxin detection. Okay, if you want to know whether it's toxic or not, the level of toxin, so you need to bring back the shellfish, go to the lab, and do some analysis. All these involve money. Yeah. And then if, for example, the toxic is happening at the dam that people use to drink, so need to treat, the water need to be treated, okay, to remove, for example, the odor or to destroy the HIV during the bloom. So this is a monitoring and management impact. And let's see a case study of cyanobacteria or blue-green bloom in Canada in 2014. So when this species bloom in this country, so they start to ban on drinking water. So it costs more than 450,000 residents stop using the tap water. for drinking, and also they're afraid to use for any other activity. Everybody stop. Okay, and this problem actually caused by blue-green algae, where these species produce toxin, what we call as microcystin. Yeah. So when it causes toxin, it will cause human health impact here. Yeah. The toxin cause problem and have a symptoms, for example, diarrhea, vomiting, and we cannot get rid of the toxin because when we boil the water, we still cannot get rid of the toxin. So this problem actually has caused panic among residents, and people now, when this happen, they start to go and buy bottled water. Water. So we buy right now. When we drink, for example, mineral water, we buy in the a bottle. So they start go to that instead of using the normal one. So so what the government has done actually, so the Toledo's water treatment plants, they use the activated carbon to stop and remove the toxin. And the several precaution also step have been taken. Also taken actually, wrong spelling here. Taken to monitor and manage the water supply. Also they have the waste, but they still need to monitor. They need to take precaution. Okay? Okay, the first what they are doing, actually they put the boya, okay, surround Toledo water, and then to monitor. The second one, they use also new carbon storage and filter system to treat the water. And then the microsystem test, which is to detect the level of the toxin, especially during the HAB season. During that time in this area, in this country, is July to September. Another most important thing is the public outreach, okay, to show people water is safe, okay. Because after the incident, few residents are still buying bottled water to drink. Yeah, because there's still that, when a consumer actually, when they lost confidence to a certain things, actually it's quite difficult for us to gain back, their trust. So it happening and everywhere in the world, although in Malaysia. So nanti I will show you one of the accident in Malaysia where it's quite difficult to get the resident trust again. Okay, another example here is the red tide monitoring in Korea. Okay, so Korea, actually, the monitoring is done by National Institute Fisheries of Science since 1972. And from 2010 to 2018, there were 244 red tides by 25 species. A lot of species, a lot of problem. Yeah. So this is actually the table showing what actually the red tide warning step in Korea. How does they tackle the HIV problem in this country? So the first thing, this is a example for cocodinium. So when they have a cocodinium, okay, the first detection of cocodinium vegetative cells, the triggering point of bloom initiation. So they always go to do monitoring. They go out sampling and then they try to see the cell number. So once they detect the cell number, so they know, okay, might something going to happen. So they go into the second step, red tide attention. So they still go sampling and they count the cell. So they found, for example, 300 cells per ml. So the bloom area within 2 to 5 kilometer radius. Okay, so they will, when they count the cell and when the cell reach 300 cells per ml, so they will come up the red tide attention already. This is the level. Okay, and then when the cell they can reach 1000 cells per ml, and a bloom area occurs 5 kilometer radius, so they will come out with red tide alert. Okay, so after that, when HB are extinct, no reach, meaning no more cells. Maybe they are still cells, but only a few cells, 1 or 2 cells, 10 cells, something like that. So they start to lifted the warning, the red tide alert. So this is the monitoring steps, okay, that have been carried out by the Korea, the Korean people, the Korean government. Yeah. Okay, and now we try to come back to Malaysia. Okay, what happened in Malaysia actually. So this slide actually show the all the HIV cases in Malaysia. So you have both in Peninsula and also in Sabah and Sarawak. Okay, the worst place that have been hit by HIV actually in Sabah, because Sabah has very long history of HIV starting from 1970s until today. And in Peninsular Malaysia also we start to have problem with different of species already. Yeah, so we have in Pahang, we have in Kelantan, we have in Selat Teberau, we have in Melaka, okay, we have in Perak, and we have in Penang. This is in Peninsular Malaysia. Okay, but in Sabah, especially in the west coast, they have a lot of problem. In Tuaran, in Kota Kinabalu, in Kuala Penyung, and in Sarawak also have been detected in area in Kuching. Yeah. Okay. Okay. In Malaysia, okay, for a public health impact, so we have problem especially from Pyrrhodium biomasse. Although for the toxin, not only Pyrrhodium in Malaysia cause a problem, we also have other species, for example, Alexandrium. But so far, the most problem cause, that keep on occurring is a Pyrrhodium. Okay, so for example, in 2013, 58 PSP stand for parotid shellfish poisoning cases were reported, and 4 died because high level of toxin. You can see here the newspaper cutting on the PSP problem in Sabah, where the title shows here, woman dies 48 ill after eating mussel. So this is the impact, the public health impact on HIV. And in Malaysia actually, in order for us to have the red tide alert, so we need also to go sampling and to collect the shellfish, for example, and then to have need to do analysis to see what is the level of the toxin. If the toxin level is the standard actually 80 microgram toxin equivalent per 100 gram shellfish. If the toxin that we detected in the shellfish collected in certain area exceed this amount, so the warning or the more important step need to be taken. And then we go on to the tourism and or recreational impact. So the public was advised and refrain from fishing activity, swimming, collecting shellfish during the bloom period. So cannot go, still can go to the beach, but try to minimize, don't collect the shellfish, because like in Sabah especially, they have a lot of people living in the near coastal area. So these people actually, they depend a lot on the coastal area for the living. They depend on the fish, on the shellfish, and so on. So it's very important for them to know, during the bloom, don't go and collect shellfish, for example. Don't go and swim and so on. Yeah. And also, when we have the problem, it will slow seafood restaurant trade, resulting in red tide alert from Health Ministry of Sabah. So also another thing is that actually when we talk about seafood restaurant, it's more towards economy on the problem, yeah. So seafood restaurant actually not so much about tourism and recreational impact, but it can be related to the tourism and recreational impact. Why? Because when we have the HIV problem, so people cannot go to the restaurant or doesn't want to go to the restaurants. The tourists afraid, and it will slow down the seafood restaurant. Yeah. Okay, another one is commercial fishery impact. Okay, this bloom, you can see that a lot of fish died. Okay, this picture taken in one of the fish aquaculture in Perak. Okay, this bloom caused by if I'm not mistaken, is from the blue-green algae. Okay, so you can see how much damage dengue HIV can cause. Okay, another species, there are few species in Malaysia that can cause commercial fishery impact. One of them is Calodinium australe. Okay, Calodinium has bloomed in Johor Straits. Okay, during that time in Johor Straits, between Singapore and Johor, it have caused more than 2.6 million USD during that time. Okay, and during the bloom, the public become panicked and worried whether to buy fish or shellfish, which affecting the sale of the fish in market. Okay, so this is the one of the, I think in Peninsular Malaysia, this is one of the biggest example of the bloom commercial fisheries impact. Okay, beside from Sabah. And the last one is actually monitoring and management impact. So in Malaysia, monitoring has been done or been conducted by the Fisheries Department. For Sabah, because they have a very long history of HAB, so over there, the Department of Fisheries Sabah have done the monitoring since 1976. Okay, and the HAB, the fisheries actually they collaborate with Ministry of Health of Sabah in monitoring, mitigating and managing of red tide occurrence in Sabah. Okay, to take care of public health and local fisheries industry, because the Department of Fisheries doesn't have the power to give the warning alert to the public. Okay, only the Ministry of Health have the power to give the ministry. So the job is the job meaning that the monitoring, okay, the toxin level, testing toxin level is done by the fishery department. But then the result of what they have done need to be informed to the Ministry of Health of Sabah in order to take further precaution is needed. Okay, and to keep fish market demand, DOF has a public awareness program educating the public uh, the difference of non-toxic and toxic red tides, because when we have toxic and non-toxic red tides, so actually if people understand what is the difference between toxic and non-toxic red tides, so the economic impact will not be so bad. Yeah. So that's why the fisheries over there try to increase the public awareness. They produce a pamphlet. They try to distribute the pamphlet to the community. Okay, and also what they have done also, they have trained the fish cage operator how to identify the fish, not the fish, the toxic species. Yeah, because the one that 24 hour that stay at the cage, it actually is the fish cage operator. So if we can train them to identify the HAB species, so when they know, so they can alert the fisheries earlier, so that then we can prevent loss of the fish, right? So that's actually the good about that. Yeah. And this slide actually shows some of the examples, okay, happening in Sabah, the newspaper cutting, and this is example of the letter when they have a red tide, how to inform and so on. Okay, the official announcement and so on. And this is another thing actually. This is the problem that happened in Tumpat, Kelantan. Okay, we have the HAB quite bad actually in Tumpat, Kelantan, caused by one of the HAB species named known as Alexandrium. So when they have the problem, okay, the shellfish, okay, cannot be eaten. But there's one area nearby to the Tumpat, Kelantan, okay, nearby to the where the HAB occur. So because when HAB occur, it will occur in one place. Not necessarily that the HAB occur along the Kelantan coast. It only happen, for example, in Tumpat, Kelantan. But in other places of Kelantan, the fish is still safe. Okay, what happened is that when the community or when local people know about the toxic problem, so people doesn't want to buy, although the shellfish or the fish come from the safe area. So this cause a problem. Yeah. Okay, this is what we call as negative sentiment among consumer. So when this happen, so all the fishmonger, the people, all makcik, they are crying because when people doesn't want to buy their shellfish anymore, because people are afraid, so they lost their income. Yeah. So that's why you can see here the newspaper cutting here. So the first one cutting shows Kelantan ban sales of shellfish from Sungai Genting. But if we see the title, it says that ban sales of shellfish from Sungai Genting, only this area. But sometimes when local people, we don't have enough knowledge, when they read this news, they will say, okay, Kelantan bans or from Kelantan, something like that, right? And this the next newspaper cutting show that peniaga mohon tarik balik larangan. So the people over there, please, they try to ask the government, please move all the prevent move that take out back the ban so that the people can come and buy their shellfish. And the last newspaper cutting here, you can see amaran kerang beracun tidak diendahkan. Okay, some people they doesn't care because because when we talk about living, people need to live, people need to feed their family, right? So when HB happen, actually how actually we want to educate people so that they know what they can do and what they cannot do. Yeah. And here when this problem happen, you can see there are a lot of impact here. There are human health impact because the toxic of the HB cause people die or people illnesses. It cause commercial fisheries impact here. This all the shellfish cannot be sold, and also can hear the monitoring and management impact where when have the HB problem in Kelantan, so the government have to put the effort how to do the monitoring, how to manage the problem. So we have human health impact, commercial fishery impact, and monitoring and management impact. Okay, before I end, again, okay, this socio-economic impact or associated economic impact, some people like to use associated economic impact instead of economic impact. Yeah, because it says that it's not actually direct economic impact, it's associated to economic impact. So that's why some people like to use this word. Right? So we can divide into four: commercial fisheries impact, for example, fish mortality, fishing closure, reduction in consumer and fish product. The second one, human health impact, medical costs, hospitalization, transportation costs, loss of productivity because like just now we share the lifeguard cannot go to the work, so so not productive anymore because not many people go to the beach, people cannot swim, so they have to stay home, have vacation. And then it's good if the owner does not cut their salary and so on. Yeah. And then we have tourism or recreation impact. So the place have to be closed, tourism closure, reduce water recreational activities, cannot go snorkeling, okay, cannot go boating. And then finally, monitoring and management impact. For example, when we have HB, we need to do water sampling, we need to do water treatment, we need to do some action in order to destroy blooms. So all these uh, have something to relate with the money, okay, the cash. Okay. So finally, I conclude my presentation today. So the impact of HB related to human health, fishery loss, mortality of fish, and reduce of tourism activities. And HB actually are natural phenomena. Yeah, and their occurrence and or toxicity are changeable depending on the environment. And one thing is about global warming now. So it has been postulated that global warming might cause the more in occurrence of HAB, right? And hence the long-term consistent monitoring of HAB with the support and collaboration of academic, government, communities are needed in order to understand HAB causes, predict their bloom, and mitigate their effect. And the ultimate sustainable development with the balance of economic, environment, and social is achievable for the future generation. So we need to have finally, okay, the earth that we share with everybody around the world. We need to have a balance. Okay, we need to have the sustainable development. We need to have the sustainable environment, okay, and social, in order for us to have a good place to live, and that the place also good that we're going to give it to our future generation. I think that's all for my talk about socio-economic impact of HB. So I give back to the floor to the Chairman, Brother Chairman. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for the insight on harmful algal blooms and their impacts to the socioeconomics. Now we go ahead to the Q&A session. For those who want to ask the questions live, please click the raise hand button. Once I call your name, you may proceed with your question. Remember to unmute yourself. As for the others, you can just simply ask your question in the chat box and I will bring it up later. Any questions? Yes, Dr. Faiz.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Norma. How are you?
Ya, salam.
On
Sehat.
behalf of the Project Seminar class, I would like to say thank you to you for spending your time with us today, sharing a very insightful topic regarding with the HAB. I have a few questions actually regarding with this topic. First of all, we are wondering why is there any scientific evidence or why there is a prevalence of this HAB in the Sabah compared to other part of Peninsula, other part of Malaysia. And my second question is, as a academician or as a scientist, what can be done in terms of this monitoring technique, since we do have at the moment now we are trying to integrate with our biological punya technology, and we want to integrate with the other digital technology. We have remote sensing and everything, we have apps and everything. Maybe you can share something on the development on that, because this thing we need to, when we want to spread the words, we need all this kind of thing so that it will be faster lah, sebab tak semua orang baca paper kan. So maybe alert system ke dekat handset dia tadi kan, keluar SMS, ada red tide, keluar tu je lah, two question.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Faiz. Okay, the first one about pyrrhodium. Why in Sabah? Not why prevalence more in Sabah actually? We also have in Peninsular Malaysia. We don't really know actually why actually started in Sabah. Because what we can remember last time, in Sabah it started in 1970 something. It caused by a species that can produce cysts. You know, they can produce cysts at dormant state. And last time there is an intention to do a cyst study. You know, when we take a core, a sediment core, then we can detect whether the problem HAB over there, when it started. Okay, now during that time, if we can get that study, then we know whether the problem in Sabah is originate from there, already the species is there, or been brought from some other countries. Because like a country in Philippines also have the same problem around that areas, and they also been hit very bad by HAB, by the same species, you know. So maybe they share the same current, the same area and something like that. So that's maybe one of the reason, but we don't know yet. We're not sure 100% why. But in one case actually, bloomed by one of the species. I don't remember what species actually. So during that time, the Philippine people claim that the HAB come from Sabah through the climate, maybe the current and so on. From the satellite images, they can see that the bloom moving from Sabah slowly towards the Philippines. So they say, okay, the bloom come from Sabah to the Philippines, something like that. Yeah. And another interesting point is that in Peninsular Malaysia, we don't have the same species that bloom in Sabah. The first species bloomed in Sabah in 1970. We don't have that in Peninsular Malaysia until recently, I think last few years, then we found that species. So why actually that species occur in Sabah but doesn't come to Peninsular Malaysia? So that I don't know the answer. Honestly, why is it like that? Whether is the environment is not suitable, or it does that something to do with the nutrient? I'm not sure about that. Okay, that's the first one. The second one, Dr. Faiz, about asking about the alert system. Okay, now the orang kata apa, zaman IoT, Internet of Things, and people talk about technologies. So now we have also need to use this technology in monitoring HAB. What I know is that the Fisheries Penang, for example, now they are collaborating with, tak ingat, one of the in Peninsular Malaysia. They're trying to produce an alert system, and I myself also now collaborating with Sabah Fisheries Department. We are trying to producing a web app application, okay, where because the fisheries people in Sabah, they do monitoring every month, okay, and the data when they have, they don't share to the public, because all the data only been kept, written or in Excel. So what we're helping them is that we develop like a system where they can insert, put in what they have found, okay, the number of cells, the toxicity, and that actually can be shared by all the local community through the application. Okay, so the application play as a one-stop center, or as a fast way to disseminate the information of HAB towards everybody in Sabah. So that's we are working now with with Department of Fishery in Sabah. Okay, and that's what I know right now lah, and about the technology. And I believe also, not only that I have said about the technology, the two technology, but I believe that in the future we need to go more, use the technology to ensure that the HAB can reach the public in more faster, or the alert system can be more uh, precise, because right now, for example, the fish people go to the sample, need to count the cell in order to know what is the cell density. So maybe in the future, I'm thinking if we can produce some things like sensor, put in the sea, and then you put in the sea, then you know what are the cell amounts, range, and then more faster, then bring back to the lab. People need to count. You need to train the people to count, to identify the cells, and then counting under the microscope takes a lot of time, a lot of patience. So that's my opinion. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Yes, Sister Fatimah. Please.
Assalamualaikum, Doctor. I would like to ask, okay, in the previous slide, you state that the HAB somehow we can consider HAB as a seasonal bloom, as the bloom take place in the summer season. I think June until September, right? Okay. So does the bloom in that time happen to certain species, or every species? And what is your opinion? Does the climate change has induced more incidents of harmful algae bloom? Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'm not sure you have learned about the fall season. Okay, when the fall season, we have changed from the winter, spring, summer, and so on. So we have season, so we have nutrient difference in each of the seasons. Okay, when the nutrient is released during certain seasons, say the bloom is coming. So normally when we have bloom, when we say bloom, bloom, HAB, bloom, harmful algal bloom, normally it will dominated by only one species, or the most two species je. It cannot go many species. That's why we call as harmful algal bloom. And then the second thing, Sister Siti asked about apa tadi, climate change. Climate change. Recently, in 2020, there are many papers have been published regarding climate change and harmful algal bloom. People talk a lot about this. So they try to predict what going to happen, when the climate change to HAB. Some people say, okay, when the climate change, okay, whether the temperature rise and so on, some of the species might become dominant, compared to other species, and this can cause it to bloom. That's the things that people are afraid of. Okay, the climate change. Similar to what you have learned about, you learned last time about the fish. For example, when there's a climate change, the fish start to migrate to area which they can live. So same to the phytoplankton. Because phytoplankton is a single cells organism. Some are very sensitive. Some will die. When we have climate change, some will become very dominant. Okay. So that actually worry us. Okay, and there are some evidence saying that already climate change will actually increase the HAB. Okay, and also another thing is when we have climate change, beside the dominancy of the algae is that the spreading of the species. Okay, the species can spread from one place to another, maybe faster with the climate change. And you have to remember when we have the climate change, when we have, for example, a reboot or anything, kan? So it have something to do with nutrients. So nutrients is very close related to the HAB. High nutrients and high HAB. So that's actually some of the issue that people have, the issue that scientists has discussed now. But still, they don't have like a very concrete evidence, a lot of evidence yet to say, okay, climate change can cause this and this and this. More towards like a hypothesis or theoretical based on the very limited evidence, because it's quite new in HAB lah. Tapi anyway, it have been discussed starting a lot of paper now, 2020, HAB and climate change. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Anything else? Yeah.
Another question is from Brother Hafizam.
Yeah,
So,
Hafizam.
he raised his hand just now.
Assalamualaikum, Doctor. My name is Hafizam. I
Ya,
have
kenal.
questions regarding nuisance algal bloom. We know that nuisance algal bloom from species from nuisance algal bloom doesn't produce toxin, but they suffocate the gills of farm fish.
Yeah.
I want to know, is there any concerns about public health regarding the nuisance algal bloom? Is nuisance algal bloom will cause health risks to the public?
Oh, okay. Okay, like this. When there's a bloom, cover the cage. Okay, so the fish will die. Okay, they're suffocated, the fish will die. Okay, when fish die, okay, a lot of fish die. So normally they're going to have a secondary infection. When they have secondary infection, so it's not ethical for the farmers to sell the fish. Okay, so they cannot sell the fish. So that's why hilang macam tu je lah. Okay, loss lah, something like that. Some of the farmers tu yang recently, last few months, I think happened in Penang. So ikan mati dekat cage, a lot of fish died. And what's the farmer do actually? They just release the fish die into the sea. So when they release to the fish, then the other local people tu kan ikan release the fish, so the fish dibawa on current from one place to another. So people start, they found, okay, a lot of fish suddenly in the sea. Actually, the fish come from the cage. And during that time, a lot of complaint, a lot of panic, and then the government during that time, they have come out, say to the local people, this is the fish actually come from the fish farm, and they also like say to the fish farmers, you cannot do that. It's unethical for you to release the fish into the sea, although the fish died. Okay, you need to collect the fish and put somewhere else. Okay, that's it. Anything else?
Is there any more questions from the floor, from the participants? Okay. It looks like there is no more questions. We've covered all of those questions and we are running out of time. Doctor, is there anything else you wanted to cover or any final message to the audience?
Okay, for me, for all brothers and sisters, HAB is not, it's not a lot of HAB problem is actually related very much to human activities. So especially us as a marine science student, maybe all our marine science students. So I hope that we have the awareness, a good awareness, and pass the awareness to our relative, our future generation, that if we cannot take care of our activities that we might cause more problem at HABs. Yeah. So far, maybe in Peninsular Malaysia, we don't heard a lot about HAB, but we might have this problem more and more in the future. So we have to think about that carefully lah. What kind of ocean that we would like to pass to our future generation. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really honored that you invite me to give a talk on HAB. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Normawaty binti Muhammad Noor. With that, we've reached the end of our webinar. On behalf of the organizer, I would like to apologize if there were any shortcomings, and we will try to improve for the future webinars. And once again, I would like to thank to all the participants for spending your time to hear for our talk for today. So before we dismiss, let's take a commemorative photo to remember our session for the day. If everyone were to open their cameras, don't forget to smile. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. That's all for today. We will end today's session with Tasbih Kifarah and Suratul Asr. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Have a great day until we meet again. Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you.